Artie Nasi was in court this morning. She joins us now from Cape Town with the very latest. Artie, what unfolded in court this morning that led to this postponement until Monday?
Well, this morning's session in court was quite short, Michelle. Essentially, the defence making central points to their leave to appeal application. The first point being that they believe that a court like the Supreme Court of Appeal will come to a different conclusion based on all the evidence that was presented during the trial. And Advocate Piet Botha also saying that if the Supreme Court found that Henri van Breda is guilty, the court may not necessarily come to the conclusion that the crime was premeditated. And thus, obviously, this will affect the sentence. Henri van Breda did get a triple life sentence, but this is purely because of the fact that Judge Siraj Desai found that the crime was premeditated. So if that finding were to fall aside, there is a possibility of changing the sentence. These are just some of the main arguments that Advocate Piet Botha presented to the court.
Now, just for a reminder, Artie, of what unfolded and what led to his eventual conviction on these charges. You were telling us a little earlier in one of your earlier crossings that, in fact, Judge Siraj Desai had to come to his own conclusion based on the evidence that he heard in court.
One thing that is still a big question mark in this case, Michelle, is the motive. And that, again, was mentioned today where Botha says that there was no evidence or no reasoning presented in court with regards to the motive. And Judge Siraj Desai, in his reasoning and conclusion in making this judgment, had to essentially deduce certain things. For example, that there may have possibility been a scuffle or a fight that took place with the family members and Henri van Breda, which resulted in him acting in this violent manner by axing his parents to death and attempting to murder his sister. But Henri van Breda maintains that he did not commit these crimes and that an axe-wielding intruder entered into the secure De Zalze estate and managed to carry out this act, which he witnessed, and was the only survivor to be left behind, and obviously with his sister Marley van Breda fighting for her life and now suffering from retrograde amnesia. But Judge Siraj Desai dismissed this version of events that Henri van Breda presented to court.
So, Artie, did we get any kind of a sense in court today of what kinds of arguments will be presented if this appeal is granted and it does go to the Supreme Court of Appeal? What might lead that court to come to a different conclusion?
Well, according to the defence and the arguments presented today, they say that there are certain sticking points, with regards to some of the state witnesses making certain concessions. But Judge Siraj Desai didn't conclude anything based on some of the concessions made. However, they believe that things such as the self-inflicted wounds, the bloodstain pattern evidence may lead the Supreme Court of Appeal to read differently into the evidence. Interestingly, also, the defence says that this is an unprecedented case because there's been so much bloodstain evidence that was presented, as well as evidence in relation to DNA and medical evidence. And Botha saying today in court that in his experience he has never ever dealt with so much evidence before a court, and thus the Supreme Court of Appeal would be best placed to deal with the wealth of evidence that we have heard at the High Court.
All right, well, Henri van Breda will get that decision from the High Court in Cape Town on Monday. Thanks very much for that update. Our reporter Artie Nasi has been tracking that case for some time now.